My name is
Broxxi.
Hey, Doc Broxxi here. This is the most difficult video I've made yet. Not because I really want to make reference to the little-known Billy Idol album in the 90s called
Cyberpunk. I'm calling this album Cyberpunk because we made it through joining together with computers, man and machine.
But because I have to dive into the metaphysical computer spirit science that delves into the pre-AOL dated computer mids, not to mention the 90s spiritual drug and rave subcultures to fully immerse myself in the show. As tradition with my videos, I will not spoil anything I deem to be important, but for this show especially, I'll be as vague as I can, as it is a show best experienced blind. But we all need a selling point for everything, so in making this video, I hope to convince you, the viewer, that Serial Experiment Lain is worth watching as a dated 90s anime that is also one of the most prevalent series of
present day, present time.
Serial Experiment Lain is a 1998 original anime made by the now defunct Triangle staff. Sadly, this company was very short-lived. Lain is the brainchild of this fellow right here. A man after my own heart with looks like that. Along with his staff of talented producers and directors, as well as his right-hand man and main artist Yoshitoshi Abe. And yes, it's spelled like that, so don't you come into my fucking comments and say it's a typo. They embarked on a very arduous and, in the words of Yasuyuki Ueda himself,
An enormous risk.
Lain is, by definition, a cyberpunk psychological mystery. I'm sure a lot of people don't exactly know what cyberpunk means, but I guarantee that you've seen a lot of its content. Cyberpunk was a 70s literary movement based against the science fiction of the past. You know, the 50s and 60s really loved their utopian sci-fis like Star Trek, while cyberpunk presents a dystopian world of low-life, high-tech. Later on, the culture would grow into other medias with movies like Blade Runner, Johnny Mnemonic, and RoboCop.
All white meat. Hungry boy. Enjoy!
Yeah, Lain might be less extreme and gritty as Blade Runner, Matrix, and Neuromancer, but it has very similar themes of entering cyberspace and interacting with the real world through the digital realm.
Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Sorry for what?
And here I was, so close to making a review without mentioning Cowboy Bebop. But cyberpunk is what you most likely enjoy about Cowboy Bebop. I swear, if you go look up Neuromancer, which is pretty much the progenitor of cyberpunk, you're gonna start looking around pop culture and see a lot of influences. Also, if you're computer autism like me and know what an IPv4, the OSI model, and what a north and south bridge of a chipset can do, then this might be for you, my fellow digital native. Serial Rapist Lain is about the titular 14-year-old female who makes many meme faces that people recognize on the internet. There are a handful of other characters, but the important ones that you really need to know are her dad, her sister, girl who committed suicide, hacker children, and Arisu, or Alice. Alice is Lain's best friend, and is also a reference to the scriptwriter's older work, Alice in Cyberland. Don't look up Alice in Cyberland. Before we go on, there are two themes to keep in mind if you choose to delve into Lain: connectivity and mental illness. The show starts with a female student named Chisa committing suicide. The next day we meet Lain making her journey to school. It's cold, it's mundane, but that's just how the show is. A lot of silence and minimal sounds to emphasize the discomfort and loneliness of being a 14-year-old. It's very common to see empty shots of no one around. Lain gets to school and we find her friend crying because they, and we'll soon find Lain, received an email from their classmate, the girl who herself. This puts a fire under Lain. As a technical invalid, she has no interest in technology until the dead girl told Lain in the email that she was still alive, inside the Wired. The Wired is the biggest aspect of the show. It's the internet plus. If I told you exactly what it was, I'd be spoiling the mystery. Dudes in Cambodia are probably using the Wired to steal your grandma's information. Alright, so to connect to the Wired, you're gonna need something called a Navi, which is a pretty high-tech, powerful computer. Lain sees that her child Navi is just not cutting it for what she wants to do, and so she goes to her father. He is a hardcore computer enthusiast. This is the first time as a viewer we notice that the Wired is a place people go to for communication and escapism. The show gives you a lot of emphasis on how addicting people get to The Wired. It's so prevalent to the lives of the normal person at this point. Again, looking at this from the point of 1998 seems outright absurd, but life imitated art. People do this right now. Lain starts to delve into her computer while things start to get very strange in the lives around her, and trust me, things get fucking. I've never seen Lain until choosing to watch it for this video. The show stands on its own pretty well without having to look into the background narrative or looking too deeply into it. But then I did my own research on what inspired and drove the concept. Ever heard of Timothy Leary?
Tell young people today, drop out of school, because schools, education today, is the worst narcotic drug of all. Don't politic, don't vote. These are old men's games. Impotent and senile old men that want to put you onto their old chess games of war and power. Drop out.
This guy was a very famous neuronaut. He led the 1960s through its infamous experimentation with drugs, specifically LSD. He was a real doctor, and from the 1960s to the 90s attempted to reach further into the study of human consciousness. Before the fella died, he would fall into the budding industry of computers, and from there he'd start a movement of digital spiritualism and start making comparisons of human consciousness to circuitry. He also became friends with Billy Idol.
Jeez. See, we've had punk. Punk means you're doing it for personal anti-establishment purposes, and cyber means you're using their technology for individual empowerment. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, great. Thank God you said it.
Okay.
Along with his friend Robert Anton Wilson, they made something called the 8th Circuit Model of Consciousness. Yeah, I get it. This is some Melvin nerdy school bullshit of pseudoscience, I know. But it was considered an inspiration and predecessor thought to what would create The Wired in the show, along with other technologies like hypertext and a few cyberpunk books of the time like Cyberia. Cyberia delved into the subcultures of digital nativism and the drug cultures around it, as well as clubbing. That's why this fella right here in this dance club Lain tends to visit is called Cyberia.
And takes designer drugs.
I saw you out the other night.
There is this very well-known interview by Ueda himself talking about how he designed the anime. It was an interview with an anime magazine in which he exclaimed he wanted a sort of cultural war against American culture and the American senses of value we adopted after World War II. But when I was in LA, the fans I met seemed so very Japanese in their perception, and that kind of isn't what I wanted. The dude wanted both cultures to watch the show and come to two different conclusions. The question I have is, what does he think that we would have thought of Lain? That Americans don't feel an overburdening sense of loneliness in the massive crowds of cities? That there isn't buzzing electrical lines above us, growing nest of wires below us, and the flow of electricity that's all around us at every waking moment? That we're all connected by a wire now like an umbilical cord to the rest of humanity at all times? There is something very interesting in that same 2000s interview that I found. Ueda himself saw and predicted the expansion of Flash and the internet giving the individuals the ability to create their own cartoons. Also, it's important to say Lain was a multimedia project planned not just as an anime, but as a video game and a manga. Going with the theme of Lain, media through The Wired is important to people, and it's how they consume and play their entertainment. The video game was made for PS1 and is about Lain at age 11. This is less of a game and more of a piece of software the developers call psycho stretchware. It has very little gameplay, and in my own opinion, it only serves to confuse you more on the plot of the anime. It also has way more gore than the show. If you want to watch the 30 minutes of cutscenes from the video game, it's on YouTube. By the way, it sold horribly, and it was a popular anime at the time too. If you've seen Lain or heard of it, you probably know the opening, Duvet by the band Boa. However, have you heard the soundtrack of Lain? It reminds me of this modern game that just came out called Hylics. I strongly recommend you check out Hylics 2 and that soundtrack, and then come back here and listen to Lain's. It's time to bring this long endeavor to an end. And I thank you for getting this far if you managed. And again, if you want to drop into my Discord and help me figure out what anime to review next, come drop me a line. And as always, stay cute, stay happy, and stay safe.
Oh, so that's how you want to play it, huh? So I'm still in this fucking program, huh? No exit for me? No escape? Well, we'll just see about that. There, now I've had the last word. I've set things straight. A computer's no match for a human.